an original narrative, created especially for Shadows of Love. Rain hammered against the taxi window as Olivia clutched her camera bag, unaware that accepting a shared ride would forever alter her life's trajectory. When the back door opened and Dominic Russo slid in beside her, suit soaked, knuckles split, eyes calculating every exit, something electric passed between them that had nothing to do with the storm. She never expected to feel safest with the most dangerous man in the city, a man whose gentle hands could both shield her eyes from flying glass and end. Lives without hesitation. The camera hidden in her bag captured what no one was meant to see. Evidence that could destroy him or save them both. Between them grew a silence filled with unspoken truths. A space where power bent to something more fragile, where the man who ruled the city's shadows waited for permission to touch what he already protected. In the darkness of that first night, as sirens wailed and rain washed blood from the streets, Olivia realized some choices aren't choices at all. They're recognition of what was always meant to be. The rain fell in violent sheets across the city, turning streets into rivers and pedestrians into desperate, hunched figures. Olivia Matthews clutched her camera bag to her chest, cursing herself for staying at the gallery so late. Her exhibition opening was days away, and perfection required sacrifice. Tonight, that sacrifice was dry clothes and sensible planning. She ducked under a store awning, water dripping from her dark hair onto her already soaked jacket. The taxi light approaching through the downpour seemed like salvation. She waved frantically, relief flooding her when it slowed. "Where to?" the driver asked as she slid into the back seat. "Westbridge Apartments on 8th, Olivia replied, pushing wet hair from her face. "Thank you for stopping." "Actually, miss," the driver said, glancing in the rearview mirror, "I've got another fare heading that direction. Mind sharing? This weather's bringing everyone in." Before she could answer, the opposite door opened. A man slid in beside her, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne, rain, and something metallic that made her pulse quicken. Water beaded on the shoulders of his tailored suit, and his dark hair was slicked back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and dangerous beauty. "Thank you," he said to the driver, his voice low and controlled. When he turned to her, his eyes, dark as the storm outside, assessed her with unnerving precision. "I apologize for the intrusion." "It's fine," Olivia managed, instinctively clutching her camera bag tighter. "We're going the same direction." He nodded once, then turned to look out the window. The silence should have been uncomfortable, but instead it felt charged, as if the air between them carried current. She noticed his hands, strong, elegant, with split knuckles that suggested recent violence. A heavy silver ring adorned his right hand, bearing a crest she couldn't quite make out. The taxi turned down an unfamiliar street, narrower than their usual route. "Shortcut," the driver explained, catching her confused expression in the mirror. Constructions backed up the main roads. The man beside her straightened almost imperceptibly, his attention suddenly focused outside. Olivia followed his gaze, but saw only rain-slicked buildings and empty sidewalks. The first crack of gunfire came without warning, the windshield spiderwebbed with bullet holes. The driver slumped forward. Before Olivia could scream, the man beside her moved with shocking speed, pushing her down across the seat, his body covering hers. As glass shattered around them, his hand, warm and steady, shielded her eyes as bullets tore through metal and leather. "Stay down," he commanded, his breath warm against her ear. The car swerved violently, then crashed into something solid. In the sudden silence, Olivia could hear only her own ragged breathing and the steady drum of rain on metal. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his weight shifting as he pulled back enough to see her face. "No," she whispered, though she wasn't entirely sure. Everything felt distant, unreal. "We need to move." He reached past her to open the door on her side, careful not to press against her. "Can you run?" Olivia nodded, clutching her camera bag. They slipped from the taxi into an alley slick with rain. The man kept his body between her and the street, one hand at the small of her back, guiding but not controlling. She noticed now that he held a gun in his other hand, carried with the casual confidence of someone who knew its weight intimately. "Who are you?" she finally asked as they pressed against a brick wall sheltered momentarily from both rain and pursuit. Dominic Russo. He offered the name without elaboration, checking around the corner before returning his attention to her. And you're safer, not knowing more right now. Something in his voice, a certainty that brooked no argument, made her believe him. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Your driver, she began, her photographer's mind replaying the moment in horrific clarity. Dead, Dominic confirmed, his expression grim but composed. That wasn't random. They were waiting. Olivia reached for her camera automatically, a professional reflex to document, to understand through her lens. As she did, Dominic's gaze sharpened. Did you take photos? During the attack? She hesitated, then nodded. I always have my camera ready. Professional habit. Show me. It wasn't a request. Olivia pulled out her camera, scrolling through the images she'd captured instinctively during the chaos. Blurred faces through windows, license plates, the flash of gunmetal. Dominic studied the images, his expression unreadable. Delete them. These could be evidence. Evidence won't bring justice here. It will only bring attention you don't want. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something beyond controlled power. A flicker of concern. Please. That single word, not a command but a request, swayed her more than any threat could have. She deleted the photos under his watchful gaze, though a backup had already automatically uploaded to her cloud storage, a safety measure, after having equipment stolen once before. We need to keep moving, he said, checking his phone briefly before pocketing it. I have somewhere safe nearby. As they moved deeper into the labyrinth of alleys, Olivia realized she was following a stranger, a dangerous man with a gun and split knuckles, yet somehow felt safer than she had all evening in the rain. Dawn broke over the city with the half-hearted glow of sun through lingering storm clouds. Olivia sat in an unfamiliar apartment, sparse, expensive, clearly temporary, scrolling through news on her phone. The headlines confirmed what her instincts had whispered in that rain-soaked alley. Dominic Russo was not simply a man caught in crossfire. Territorial dispute escalates. 3 dead in suspected Russo family retaliation. Accompanying the article was a photo of Dominic at some charity event, looking untouchable in a tuxedo, captioned, Dominic Russo, who inherited the family's business interests following his father's assassination last year. She set down her phone as Dominic emerged from the other room, now dressed in a fresh shirt and dark pants, his hair still damp from a shower. The split knuckles had been cleaned, but remained visible, badges of violence he made no attempt to hide. You found me in the news, he stated, nodding toward her phone. Organized crime, Olivia said, meeting his gaze directly. The papers call you a capo. The papers simplify complex situations. He moved to the kitchen, putting on coffee with practiced efficiency. What they don't report is that I've spent the last year dismantling the trafficking and drug operations my father allowed. The attack last night was retaliation from those who preferred the old way. Why tell me this? Because you didn't run. He handed her a cup of coffee, keeping a respectful distance. And because those backup photos you didn't think I noticed uploading could get you killed. Heat flushed her face. I'm a photojournalist. Documentation is instinct. And self-preservation isn't. His voice remained level, not accusatory. I should go home, she said, standing abruptly. Thank you for the coffee and the protection. Dominic moved to the window, gesturing for her to join him. On the street below, a nondescript sedan was parked with 2 men inside, their attention fixed on the building entrance. They found your ID in the taxi, he explained. They'll be watching your apartment, your studio, your parents' old place in Riverside. The mention of her parents, dead 5 years now, sent a chill through her. How do you know about them? I had you checked while you slept. At her expression, he added, just your public history. I needed to understand what I'm protecting. I didn't ask for protection. No, but I'm offering it anyway. He moved away from the window, giving her space. 3 days. Stay at my penthouse until I resolve this situation. Then you're free to go. And the photos become irrelevant. Your penthouse? Olivia laughed incredulously. I have an exhibition opening in 4 days. I can't just disappear. You can prepare your exhibition from there. Better security. More space. His dark eyes held hers. I'm not imprisoning you, Olivia. I'm offering sanctuary. The way he said her name, like it was something precious held in careful hands, made her hesitate. What are your terms? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're negotiating with me. Smart. I'm establishing boundaries, she corrected. Fair enough. He set down his coffee. My terms. You stay where my people can protect you. You don't contact anyone who might inadvertently reveal your location. And when this is over, those photos never surface. Olivia considered him. This dangerous man offering safety with hands that had likely ended lives. Yet something in his steady gaze spoke of honor, of lines he wouldn't cross. My terms, she countered. I keep my independence within your security parameters. I continue my work. You tell me the truth, always, about anything that affects my safety. And I decide what happens with my photographs, based on what I learn. Dominic studied her for a long moment, respect flickering in his eyes. Agreed. 2 hours later, they entered his penthouse, a stunning expanse of glass and steel overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the storm clouds, finally breaking. Sunlight spilling across polished floors. The space was minimalist but luxurious, with an open floor plan and surprising warmth in its design. The guest suite is through there. Dominic indicated a hallway. My room is on the opposite side. The security team monitors the elevators and entrance. But they don't come up without permission. A gilded cage is still a cage, Olivia murmured, though she couldn't deny the space's beauty. The door isn't locked, he replied simply. But out there, without protection, you're walking with a target on your back. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed. Dominic tensed, positioning himself between Olivia and the potential threat. A protective instinct that seemed as natural to him as breathing. The doors opened to reveal a young woman with Dominic's eyes and a law textbook under her arm. She assessed the scene with a raised eyebrow. Well, she said, smiling slightly, this is new. Sophia, Dominic said with evident affection. This is Olivia Matthews. She'll be staying with us for a few days. Sophia extended her hand. So you're the photographer who's disrupted my brother's carefully ordered world. I think I'm going to like you. And just like that, Olivia stepped fully into Dominic Russo's dangerous, complex life, a world of shadows, where protection and threat were often indistinguishable. Life behind Dominic's glass walls developed its own rhythm. By the third day, Olivia had transformed a corner of the living room into a makeshift studio. Her exhibition prints spread across a table, her laptop connected to his superior network. The penthouse hummed with silent luxury. Everything of the highest quality, but nothing ostentatious, as if wealth were merely an afterthought to function. She learned the patterns of his world through careful observation. Dominic rose before dawn, worked out in the private gym, then spent hours on calls that switched fluidly between English and Italian. Men in tailored suits came and went. Antonio, the consigliere with silver at his temples and eyes that missed nothing. Marco, the security chief, whose respectful nods to Olivia grew warmer each day. Others whose names blurred together, but whose deference to Dominic remained constant. Sophia proved to be a welcome presence, stopping by between law classes with coffee and gossip. Unlike her brother, she spoke freely, filling empty spaces with bright conversation. He's different with you here, Sophia mentioned on the third afternoon, perched on a bar stool as Olivia edited photos. Less contained. We barely interact, Olivia pointed out, though it wasn't entirely true. Their orbits crossed in small, significant moments, passing coffee without asking how the other took it, exchanging brief observations about news headlines, existing in companionable silence during evening hours. That's what makes it interesting, Sophia replied with a knowing smile. Dom doesn't let people in his space. Ever. That evening, Dominic returned earlier than usual, his customary suit exchanged for dark jeans and a simple button-down. He moved to the kitchen with purpose, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. You cook? Olivia asked, surprised. Italian mother, he answered simply, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. Some skills are non-negotiable. She watched as his hands, capable of violence, moved with surprising gentleness, chopping herbs with precision, stirring sauce with practiced ease. The domesticity of it created a strange intimacy, a glimpse of the man beneath the power. Your exhibition, he said, nodding toward her prints. May I? Olivia hesitated, then nodded. Her work was deeply personal. Urban landscapes capturing moments of unexpected beauty and decay. Human stories told through absence rather than presence. Dominic studied each image with unexpected focus, taking his time. You photograph aftermath, he finally said, not the moment. But what remains after significant events? The empty chair, the abandoned building, the space where someone once stood. His observation struck her silent. No critic had ever articulated the heart of her work so precisely. You see too much, she finally managed. Occupational necessity. He returned to the stove, adding a splash of wine to the sauce, though I usually apply it to less beautiful subjects. Over dinner, pasta that tasted of sunlight and distant memories. Olivia found herself sharing the story of her parents. How they died in what police called a robbery gone wrong. How their photography studio had passed to her, along with boxes of unfinished projects she couldn't bring herself to open. They taught me everything about photography, she said softly. Except how to capture what their absence feels like. Dominic listened without interruption, his attention a tangible thing. When she finished, he didn't offer empty condolences. Some losses defy documentation, he said instead. My father was assassinated at a family dinner. I was the one who found him. I understand the weight of unexpected endings. The confession, offered simply, without dramatic flourish, created a bridge between their worlds. For the first time, Olivia saw clearly that Dominic hadn't chosen his life any more than she had chosen the loss that shaped hers. Later, as midnight approached, they stood at the wall of windows overlooking the glittering city. The space between them had shrunk to mere inches. Though neither had consciously moved closer, the air seemed charged with unspoken possibility. Your world has strict rules, Olivia observed, watching his profile reflected in the glass. No drugs, no trafficking. Lines drawn in blood. Ethics don't disappear in gray areas, he replied. They become more essential. His hand rested on the window frame near hers, not touching but close enough that she could feel the heat of his skin. The restraint in that small distance spoke volumes. His respect for her boundaries more powerful than any touch could have been. A security alert broke the moment. A soft chime followed by Marco's voice over the intercom, reporting a perimeter check. Dominic moved away, resuming his role as protector and power broker with seamless efficiency. That night, unable to sleep, Olivia stepped into the hallway for water and found Dominic sitting in the living room, reading in the dim light. He looked up, meeting her eyes across the darkened space. Sleep, he said gently. I'm keeping watch. She returned to bed, realizing with startling clarity that she felt safer with this dangerous man than she had in years. A contradiction that should have troubled her more than it did. The call came before dawn. Olivia woke to urgent voices in the living room. Dominic's controlled tone undercut with something she hadn't heard before. Barely contained fury, she slipped from bed, moving silently toward the sound. I want everyone there, Dominic was saying, his back to her as he stared out at the lightening sky. Security footage, witness statements, everything. Antonio stood nearby, his usually composed face grim. The fire department is calling it arson. Accelerant at multiple points of origin. Fire. Olivia stepped forward, dread pooling in her stomach. What happened? Both men turned. Something in Dominic's expression, a flash of regret quickly masked, told her everything before he spoke. Your studio, he said quietly. There was a fire early this morning. The world tilted sideways. Her parents' studio, the last physical connection to them, housing decades of their work alongside her own. Her exhibition backups, family archives, all of it gone. How bad, she managed. Total loss, Antonio answered when Dominic remained silent. I'm sorry, Miss Matthews. Olivia pressed her palm against the cool glass of the window, anchoring herself against the vertigo of grief. Was anyone hurt? No, Dominic moved closer, though he didn't touch her. The building was empty. This is because of me, she whispered. Because of what I saw that night. This is because of me, Dominic corrected, his voice hardening. Because someone is using you to send a message. She turned to face him fully. Then I need to leave. My presence puts you at risk too. You misunderstand. His eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. This wasn't a warning to you. It was a challenge to me. Someone in my organization betrayed your location. The implications settled over her like ash. Someone close to Dominic had broken faith, had deliberately targeted what mattered to her. The personal nature of the attack made it more horrifying than random violence could ever be. I need to see it, she said. It's not safe. I need to see it, she repeated, her voice leaving no room for argument. I'm a photographer, Dominic. I document aftermath, remember. This is mine to witness. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. He nodded once. We'll take precautions. 2 hours later, surrounded by Dominic's security team, Olivia stood before the charred skeleton of the studio. The familiar brick facade was blackened, windows blown out, interior gutted. The smell, smoke, chemicals, destroyed memories, burned her lungs with each breath. She raised her camera, forcing herself to see through the lens what was too painful to face directly. Click. The melted sign her father had hand-painted. Click. Water pooling in the hollow doorway. Click. Dominic standing at the perimeter, his silhouette stark against emergency lights, watching not the destruction, but the surrounding buildings, always vigilant, always protecting. By afternoon, they had returned to the penthouse, and Dominic had called a meeting. Olivia watched from the periphery as he assembled his inner circle in the dining room. Antonio, Marco, 3 lieutenants, whose territories bordered rival families. The conversation flowed in a mixture of English and Italian, but the tension required no translation. We have a traitor, Dominic stated, his calm voice belying the dangerous energy emanating from him. Someone shared Ms. Matthews' connection to me and the location of her property. No one spoke, but glances were exchanged, assessment, suspicion, concern. I want them found, he continued, not for vengeance, but for accountability. By evening, they had their answer. Marco entered the penthouse with a young man, barely more than a boy, whose face was pale with terror. Carlo, a distant cousin newly brought into the organization, had sold information to a rival family for quick cash, not understanding the consequences. Dominic received this news in the study. When he emerged, his expression was unreadable. There will be a meeting at the Riverside warehouse, he told Antonio. Bring Carlo and the necessary witnesses. Olivia, who had been working silently at her laptop, looked up sharply. What does that mean? For a moment, Dominic seemed to debate whether to answer. Then, honoring their agreement for truth, he said, It means there are consequences for betrayal in my world. You're going to kill him, she stated, rising from her chair. No. His denial was immediate and absolute. That's not who I am. But there must be consequences, or the rules mean nothing. Later that night, Dominic returned alone, his expression weary but resolved. When Olivia questioned him with her eyes, he said simply, Exile. His connection to the family is severed. He leaves the city tonight. The mercy in his judgment, choosing banishment over blood, should have reassured her. Instead, it highlighted the fundamental divide between their worlds. In the silence that followed, Olivia made a decision. I need space, she said quietly, to process everything. Dominic studied her face, then nodded once. From his pocket, he withdrew a simple silver bracelet with a small embedded device. If you need me, he said, placing it in her palm without touching her skin. Press this. I'll come. No questions, no conditions. As she closed her fingers around the cool metal, Olivia understood it was both gift and promise. Protection offered without demand, connection without constraint. The weight of it felt like a choice she wasn't ready to make. 3 days passed in cautious separation. Olivia moved to a hotel under a false name, focusing on salvaging what she could for her exhibition. The backup cloud storage had preserved her digital files, but the original prints, and everything from her parents' archives, existed now only as ash in memory. The gallery owner had been understanding, offering to postpone. Olivia refused. The show is about resilience in empty spaces, she'd said. Now it has its own story of survival. She wore Dominic's bracelet constantly, though she told herself it was merely practical. The weight of it against her wrist became a reminder of a world she'd glimpsed, but didn't belong to. A world of power constrained by personal codes, of violence tempered by unexpected mercy. On the evening before her exhibition, A text arrived from an old journalism colleague, Maya. Found something in your parents' old investigation files. Meeting at Cafe Lumen at 8. Curiosity overrode caution. Her parents had been investigating political corruption before their deaths, work Olivia had abandoned in her grief. If Maya had found something, perhaps there was purpose in the pattern of loss. Cafe Lumen was quiet when she arrived. Just a few patrons lingering over late coffees. Maya waved from a corner table, her familiar smile a comfort in weeks of uncertainty. You look different, Maya observed as Olivia sat, more intense. It's been an unusual month, Olivia replied carefully. You said you found something. Actually, yes. Maya slid a USB drive across the table. Your parents were documenting meetings between the former mayor and several crime families. This was in their storage unit, the one you kept paying for, but never visited. Olivia stared at the small device. Why bring this to me now? Because the same players are positioning for the upcoming election. Maya leaned forward. Your parents died for this story, Liv. Don't you want to know why? Before Olivia could answer, Maya's phone chimed. She checked it, then stood abruptly. Bathroom. Back in a minute. As Maya walked away, unease prickled along Olivia's spine. Something felt wrong. Maya's nervous energy, the convenient timing, the empty cafe. She slipped the USB drive into her pocket and reached for her phone. The back door opened. 3 men entered silently, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Not cafe staff, not customers. Olivia's hand moved to the bracelet, thumb hovering over the hidden button. Too late. A cloth pressed over her mouth, chemical sweetness flooding her lungs. As consciousness slipped away, she managed one final act, pressing the bracelet's signal before darkness claimed her. She awoke in a warehouse, wrists bound to a chair, head pounding. Industrial lights buzzed overhead, illuminating concrete floors and metal support beams. The space echoed with emptiness, save for the man standing before her, elegant in an expensive suit, his smile practiced and empty. Ms. Matthews, he said, his voice cultured and cold. I apologize for the dramatic introduction. I'm Vincent Caruso. The rival family name registered immediately. This was the man challenging Dominic's territories, pushing drugs and trafficking back into neighborhoods. Dominic had cleaned up. Where's Maya? Olivia asked, testing her restraints discreetly. Your friend is fine. Paid well for her cooperation, in fact. Vincent circled her chair slowly. Though she genuinely believed she was helping you discover the truth about your parents. And what truth is that? Vincent stopped, studying her with calculated interest. That they died. Because they documented a meeting between my father and certain political figures. A meeting your new protector, Dominic Russo, helped arrange in his early days with the family. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Dominic, connected to her parents' death. It seemed impossible, yet doubt crept in like smoke under a door. You're lying, she said, though uncertainty colored her voice. Am I? Vincent produced a tablet, showing her photographs. Grainy but clear enough to recognize a younger Dominic escorting officials into a private club. Your parents were idealists with cameras. Dangerous combination in our world. Olivia's mind raced, reassessing everything. Had Dominic known who she was from the beginning? Was his protection merely guilt disguised as honor? What do you want from me? She finally asked. The USB drive, for starters. Vincent's smile never reached his eyes. And then, a simple exchange. Your freedom for Dominic Russo's appearance, alone, at this location. He won't come for me, Olivia said, the lie bitter on her tongue. Vincent laughed softly. The mighty Dominic Russo has been watching over you like a guardian angel for days. My sources say he even let a traitor live, because killing him would upset your delicate sensibilities. He leaned closer. He'll come, and when he does, the Russo era ends. As if summoned by the words, the warehouse door slid open. Dominic stood silhouetted against the night, alone as demanded. His posture relaxed but alert. His eyes found Olivia's immediately, a silent question in their depths. Are you hurt? She shook her head slightly. Russo, Vincent greeted, gesturing expansively. Right on time. Caruso. Dominic stepped forward, hands visible and empty. This isn't necessary. Our business doesn't involve her. But it does, Vincent countered. Everything involves her now. The photographer who captured what she shouldn't have. The woman who made you vulnerable. Dominic's expression remained impassive, but Olivia saw the minute tightening around his eyes, the only tell in his perfect control. Let her go, Dominic said quietly. Your quarrel is with me. It was, Vincent agreed, until I discovered who she was. The daughter of the very photographers who documented my father's humiliation. Poetic, isn't it? Now she'll witness your fall as well. Movement flickered in Olivia's peripheral vision. Shadows detaching from corners. Men with weapons materializing from darkness. An ambush, as she'd suspected it. Vincent had never intended negotiation. In that moment, Dominic's eyes met hers again, something unspoken passing between them. Trust, apology, resolve. She understood with sudden clarity. He had come knowing it was a trap, had walked in alone to give her a chance. As Vincent raised his hand to signal his men, Olivia made her choice. With all her strength, she tipped her chair sideways, crashing to the floor as the first shots rang out. The distraction was minimal, but sufficient. Dominic moved with lethal precision, drawing his weapon as he dove for cover. What followed was chaos orchestrated like a deadly ballet. Dominic fired with surgical accuracy while moving toward her, pulling her behind a concrete pillar. I've got people outside, he said, his body shielding hers. Can you run when I create an opening? Not without you, she answered, surprising them both with her certainty. A bullet struck the pillar inches from their heads, showering them with concrete dust. In the momentary shelter, Dominic's hand found hers, fingers intertwining briefly, their first true touch, electric even in danger. Together then, he said, and together they fought their way out, Olivia using a fallen weapon to provide covering fire. Dominic leading them through the labyrinth of the warehouse, with unerring precision. When reinforcements arrived, Marco and a team breaching the side entrance, the tide turned decisively. In the aftermath, Vincent lay wounded but alive, his empire crumbling around him as his men surrendered or fled. Dominic stood over him, gun steady, face impassive. Finish it, Vincent spat. Like your father would have. I'm not my father, Dominic replied, holstering his weapon. You'll face justice, not execution, as police sirens wailed in the distance. Summoned by Antonio on Dominic's orders, Olivia realized she had witnessed something remarkable. Power restrained by principle, even in the face of betrayal. Hospital light fell in pale rectangles across the private room where Dominic sat, his shoulder bandaged beneath a clean shirt. The bullet had grazed him during their escape, a wound he'd dismissed as insignificant until Olivia insisted on proper medical attention. The doctors say you can leave tomorrow, she said, settling into the chair beside his bed. Between them lay the USB drive, its contents now reviewed and understood. Your parents were documenting corruption, Dominic said quietly. Vincent wasn't entirely wrong. I did escort officials to meetings with crime families in my early days with my father. But you didn't know what my parents were investigating, Olivia finished for him. You didn't know who they were until recently. He nodded, his dark eyes solemn. When I took control after my father's death, I found records. Your parents were targeted because they had evidence of collusion between the previous administration and several families, including mine. By then, it was too late to prevent what had already happened. So you started dismantling the operations that depended on that corruption, Olivia realized. Trafficking, the businesses that required political protection. It wasn't atonement, he said carefully. Just the right thing to do. Olivia studied his face, the face of a man who had walked alone into an ambush for her, who had shown mercy when violence would have been easier, who had built a code of honor in a world that rewarded its absence. I'm publishing it all, she said, touching the drive. The evidence my parents gathered, the connections to current candidates, everything. There will be consequences, he warned, for many powerful people. Good. Her voice was steady, resolved. Truth should have consequences. The morning of her exhibition opening dawned clear and bright. The gallery hummed with activity as final preparations were made. Olivia's photographs, printed anew from digital files, hung alongside a special installation. Her parents' work, salvaged from the USB drive, documenting the shadowy intersection of power and corruption in their city. The story had broken that morning across multiple news outlets. Already, 2 candidates had withdrawn from the upcoming election. An independent prosecutor had been appointed. The city was awakening to long-buried truths, painful but necessary. Olivia moved through the space, adjusting a frame here, repositioning a light there. The gallery felt sacred somehow, a temple to truth, to resilience, to the power of bearing witness. When the door opened behind her, she knew without turning who had entered. "It's beautiful," Dominic said, his footsteps quiet on the polished floor. She turned to face him, seeing him in daylight for the first time since the hospital, elegant in a tailored suit, yet somehow more accessible, less guarded. The distance he'd always maintained had diminished, though his inherent power remained unchanged. "Thank you for coming," she said. "And for the security detail, you pretended I wouldn't notice." A smile touched his lips. Old habits. They walked the exhibition together, stopping before a photograph of 2 empty chairs, facing an ocean horizon, one of the few pieces salvaged from her parents' collection. "What happens next?" The question encompassing far more than the exhibition. "The families are regrouping. Vincent's operation is dismantled. The political landscape is shifting." He paused, turning to face her fully. "But I think you're asking about us." The directness was new. Another wall between them falling away. "Yes," she admitted. "I've lived in shadows, Olivia, made peace with darkness, built something resembling honor in a world that rarely values it." His voice remained steady, but emotion ran beneath the surface. "Then you stepped into that taxi, and suddenly the shadows weren't enough." From his pocket, he withdrew a small box, not kneeling, understanding instinctively that she would prefer to meet him as an equal. He opened it to reveal a ring of startling simplicity and beauty. "I'm not offering you my world," he said quietly. "I'm asking to be part of yours, where truth matters, where light reaches even the darkest corners." Olivia looked from the ring to his face, seeing not the powerful capo, but the man who cooked pasta from memory, who protected without possessing, who chose mercy when violence would have been simpler. "Yes," she said, "but with conditions." His smile deepened. "I would expect nothing less. My name remains mine. My work remains independent. Our life together must be built on honesty, not protection from truth." "Agreed," he said without hesitation. "On one condition of my own, that you allow me to love you as completely as I already do." Later, as twilight painted the city in watercolor hues, they stood on the gallery's balcony overlooking streets, now quiet after the day's political upheaval. Dominic's arm rested lightly around her waist. The casual intimacy they had denied themselves for so long, now freely expressed. Olivia raised her camera, capturing their reflection in the glass. 2 silhouettes against a city poised between decay and renewal, between shadow and light. In the image, they stood as equals, his strength and her vision creating something neither could have built alone. "What do you see?" he asked, his breath warm against her hair. "Balance," she answered, "and possibility." As night embraced the city, Dominic turned her gently in his arms, his kiss a promise sealed in darkness, but meant for light. Between them, no shadows remained, only truth, hard-won and precious. "Now we live," he murmured against her lips. "Now we tell the truth," she answered, completing what had begun in rain and refuge, in danger and trust, in the space between who they had been and who they might become together.